I can't keep up. While I was uploading this catalogue of errors on Steve Crowder's website in my last video, I mean literally while it was being uploaded, I noticed Team Crowder posted yet another one. Well, at least this time they can't be blamed for not checking with the source, because this time their source isn't a blog or a tabloid newspaper, it's the actual statement by the Swiss National Science Foundation, which funded research by several scientific organizations, the PMOD, which led the study, the EAWAG, ETH Zurich, and the University of Bern. So there's no fact-checking to be done, the facts are right there in front of them. All they had to do was copy them. And this time they can't be excused for not understanding the complicated scientific jargon, because it's not a scientific paper, it's a statement written in just plain English. So what on earth went wrong? Well, let's start with an easy one. The very second paragraph of the statement begins, "There is human-induced climate change and there are natural climate fluctuations." But Team Crowder thinks the statement concludes, "When it comes to fluctuations in global temperatures, the sun is to blame." No, the statement says nothing of the sort, nowhere in the entire text. It says climate change is due to human-induced climate change and natural climate fluctuations, which of course is what every other researcher in the field says, and one of those natural climate fluctuations is the sun. But that kind of misrepresentation is easy. Team Crowder is just making something up and hoping no one notices. What they do next is far more subtle. First, Team Crowder quotes verbatim from the SNSF statement. They, that's the researchers, expect the Earth's temperature to fall by 0.5 degrees when solar activity reaches its next minimum. Yes, that is in the SNSF statement, and it looks pretty cast iron. So Team Crowder feels it can confidently tell us that the Earth is poised to not get warmer, but a little cooler. The climate cools as the sun cools. Then, if we scroll down, bit further. Okay, stop, go back. Right there, Team Crowder tells us that climate changers are already rushing to decry this new information. Typical climate changers. Because good news for the planet is bad news for idiots who want to feel relevant by blaming humanity for having the power to affect the planet's climate. So who's the example they give of an idiot climate changer decrying this new information? According to the example they showed, some guy called Werner Schmutz, head of some project or other. According to the project head Werner Schmutz, this reduction in temperature is significant, even though it will do little to compensate for human-induced climate change. So again, Team Crowder seems to be right. As soon as the scientist publishes a study clearly showing that we're in for a period of global cooling, some idiot climate changer decries it with a claim that it's going to be overwhelmed by man-made global warming. So who is this Werner Schmutz? Well, if we look to see where the quote comes from, it turns out a crucial piece of identifying information has been cut by Team Crowder. The original quote identifies Werner Schmutz as director of PMOD. Hang on, isn't that one of the scientific institutes that did the study? Now that's odd. Is the director of the PMOD refuting the conclusions of his own researchers? And if so, why did Team Crowder remove the reference? Well, it turns out that Werner Schmutz, the idiot climate changer who apparently decries the SNSF study, is the same Werner Schmutz who was lead author of the SNSF study. That's because the quote Team Crowder lifted, explaining that warming will continue, came from the same place in the SNSF statement as their earlier quote about solar cooling. Here they are as originally written in the SNSF statement. Wow, you guys went to a lot of trouble to mix this up. So from the top, the SNSF is not saying the sun is to blame for fluctuations in the climate. It's saying it's one factor. Man-made climate change, in other words carbon dioxide, is another. And they're saying that of the two, man-made climate change is more powerful and will overwhelm a small amount of cooling due to lower solar output over the next 50 to 100 years. This small amount of cooling won't stop global warming, it won't reverse global warming, but it might reduce it a little. Schmutz spells out the conclusion, the same conclusion of other researchers who've studied future solar output, by the way, that despite lower solar output, the world will still continue warming because of human-induced climate change. So once again, Team Crowder is claiming that the conclusion of the researchers is the complete opposite to what they clearly stated. I've linked the Crowder blog and the statement in my video description, so everything's open for you to check for yourselves. Okay, now to Steve's response on the forum of my last video. Once again, Steve, you say I've got some things wrong and some things right. And once again, you've invited me onto your show, presumably to talk about the things you think I got wrong. So once again, I've asked you to tell me what those things are so that we have something to discuss. And once again, you won't say. Instead, you give enigmatic responses like this on your Twitter feed. But what if he's misrepresenting both our evidence and conclusions? Oh, come on, that's being more coy than a flirty teenager. What if I asked you out? What would you say? Are you asking me out? What if I was? I don't know. It depends if you're asking. Oh, for goodness sake, Steve, we're grown-ups. Did I misrepresent your evidence and conclusions or not? What if I did? Well, then the solution is very easy and it's in your hands. Tell everyone openly what I've misrepresented and let's debate it. This doesn't have to be done live in order to be open. To be open, it just has to be done on a public forum. I've invited you to debate any of my corrections that you contest openly so that everyone can read and check the evidence we both present. This doesn't have to be done on your channel or mine if that's what's stopping you. It could be done on any website. Anyone want to set one up? I'll lay out my case and upload all the papers and all the evidence for everyone to read. Then you can respond and present your evidence in rebuttal for everyone to read. A free and open debate where each side, including the audience, has the chance to read and check all the evidence we present. I'm reading the sources you provided, so all we have to do is compare what you think the source says to what the source actually says. Shouldn't take long. Your excuse is that you're too busy to debate in an open forum. But to be fair, you've got an entire team on your side and time to send me an email and post 2 lengthy responses on my video fora and several tweets. So surely you can find the time to do this. As for debating this on your show, as we both know, I'm still waiting for you to decide on a topic, which you won't do. I'm not asking you to give away your arguments. All I want to establish is what we're going to talk about. Your producer, Jared, said it could be a discussion of our differences, which is fine. But if you won't tell me which of my corrections are valid and which ones aren't, then I don't know what these differences are. I think 6 months of asking you is long enough, so I had an idea. I figured that since you haven't corrected or redacted any of these claims on your website, it's fair to assume you stand by all of them. And since you won't choose which claim you want to debate, I'll pick one for you. So let's go with the one I focused on in my last video, the claim that NASA says fossil fuels cause global cooling. I know you didn't write this, but it's on your website and under your name, so I presume you approved it, and after I exposed the errors, you must have checked it and decided it needs to stay up there. You have a huge advantage over me, because you've seen the evidence I'm going to present, and you have plenty of time to prepare. To make sure I'm not misrepresenting your conclusion, it's right here. Your claim is that this NASA study concludes that fossil fuels cause temporary global cooling, not global warming. You still stand by that claim? Okay, then we're good. I've found a moderator, as you suggested. Richard Jones, a YouTuber who invited me to take part in a charitable quiz a few years back. I've never met him, but he did a great technical job in arranging a 3-screen live broadcast of that event, which is exactly what we need, and he's agreed to set this up. He's done a lot of videos promoting atheism, but don't hold that against him. Our discussion isn't about religion. He'll make sure we each get a fair hearing, don't shout over one another, or refuse to cite our sources. Here's the email I sent him suggesting what I hope you'll agree are very fair guidelines. By the way, ignore number 4, because that was written when you were still refusing to give a topic for the debate. I've chosen one for you. I know it sucks having guidelines, but we are having a debate about science, which entails things like citing papers and showing evidence, in line with our shared belief that everything should be always open. I'm so glad you agree with that. And of course, the guidelines ensure we stay focused on the topic of debate rather than sidetracking. But that doesn't mean it can't be fun. Neither of us is taking our differences personally, and you've been very civil throughout our dialogue. Thanks. So let's try to shed some light on the facts rather than just generate a lot of heat with opinion. The other stumbling block to going on your show was the 12-hour time difference, but since you generously offered to let me choose the time, then that should no longer be an issue. Thanks very much for being flexible on that. And finally, as I said, I'm on the road until September, so any on-air discussion will have to wait until then. For the next 4 months, I'm travelling with an unpredictable schedule and trying to cope with weak Wi-Fi in a variety of hotels. In the meantime, there's nothing to stop us debating any of your other claims online, in the open, so everyone can see your evidence and my evidence. How about making the topic of that debate Team Crowder's claim that this statement by the Swiss National Science Foundation says their research shows that the sun regulates the climate, and that the SNSF says we're headed for global cooling? That should be fun. If Team Crowder or some kind soul can set up a website where we can debate this, we can get started. I've been trying to get you to debate your claims for 6 months, Steve. I know your excuse for avoiding this debate is that you're all too busy. Well, let's see.